say? Yeah, three. Yep.
Hmm.
So this one is going to be corruption is killing you, living in today's America. So we have a panelists here who have experience in different areas, organizing, working in cities and towns, growing up in today's America. I'm sure we all know the cost of living, wages, inflation. I like to call it greedflation. I don't think it really is inflation, but I'm sure the folks here will get into that as well, and how it's all connected to corruption and their experiences and what they see as far as impacts of big money in politics in the areas that they work in or they service or they organize, because we all know they're vast. So yeah, I will stop talking and hand it over to Ronnie and Anita.
All right, Josh. Awesome as always. Eloquent as always. I'm grateful to you for that introduction. This is exactly what it's about, y'all. Learning exactly how corruption is killing you and learning what you can do about it. So I wanted to welcome everyone here and express my gratitude to everyone for taking the time to come and learn and grow and get involved with us today. And we are going to start off with some introductions. I guess I'll go first since I'm the one yapping. Um, so the introductions. So we're going to talk about, um, let's see. So what's your name? Where are you from? What do you do? And who are you with? And what your role is. And once again, this is all kind of broadly construed. You know, just like Aaron said at the beginning of the other one, it can be, you know, whatever you do, even if it's a hobby because you don't have a job right now because stuff is hard, um, all that kind of stuff. So my name is Ronnie Kellogg, and I am from Lincoln, Nebraska. I was born and raised in Omaha, but I ended up moving here in 2008 because I wanted to get training at the Center for the Blind, and I got that training, and I literally never left. I moved here, and I still live in the same apartment since 2009. I am the C4 board chairperson, Wolfpack Action Fund. And I help with fundraising. I kind of helped kind of I kind of helped kind of the project manager basically for the board. I kind of help I run the meetings and stuff like that, and I help make the agendas and anyone can decide what to put on the agenda as well. But I help do all that stuff. I do all that stuff as my role. Um, who wants to go next? Anita, since you're the another moderator.
Hello, everybody. I'm Anita. My pronouns are she, her. I am originally from Southern California, but I live in Seattle, Washington now. I am the state leader for Washington State with Wolfpack. I also volunteer and work with an organization that we have a coalition with here called Washington Community Action Network. So I do a lot of canvassing, tabling, talking to community members, um, and get the word out about all these injustices that corruption affects, as well as the corruption itself to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And now, without further ado, our esteemed panel members.
Yes. So, we've got Justin Royes. Are you here, Justin?
Hey, Ronnie, I am here. Thank you all for joining me.
Hey. All right. Go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit
Yes.
about you.
Thank you, Wolfpack. My name is Justin Royas. I am obviously a father. My daughter's with me, making a guest appearance here. So I hope you don't mind that. I'm a full-time school social worker, licensed therapist, and city councilor for the city of Providence. And of course, I have strong ties to our Wolfpack family. When a few years ago, Rhode Island was the fifth state to pass an Article 5 convention to rid this country of the corrupting influence of big money in politics. And Josh Ace is the national director. Currently was a co-director with me in that journey to get big money out of politics. So I'm really excited to be here.
Wonderful. Well, grateful to have you. All right, Brandon. Who you is, brother?
Hi, my name is Brandon Lemay, and I'm with a group called Rights and Democracy. We are a bi-state organization in New Hampshire and Vermont. I am the statewide New Hampshire housing justice organizer. And yeah, I am mostly rallying around what's called Housing First, which is seeking to view housing as a human right and a public good rather than a commodity that fuels the needs of the rich and instead meets the needs of the many and the working class.
Wonderful. Grateful to have you here. Andrew, how you doing? Very grateful to have you here too.
Thanks. Can everybody hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I was having some technical difficulties because I'm borrowing some friends' equipment. And we had in the first video or the first segment about the military industrial complex, I just had no video the entire time and we couldn't figure out why. So we switched devices and then I had video but no audio and we finally got it figured out. Anyway, I'm Andrew Ostgaard. I'm also originally from Southern California. Orange County area. I'm a houseless veteran, actually. As far as the question, what do you do? It's kind of what I do. So I wrote down all the questions and my answers to them for this segment. It says, who are you with? And I'm not officially affiliated with any specific organization. I'm actually very new to this type of activism. I was invited to speak here today by Anita, who's been a good friend of mine for a couple years. And so as for my role, I would consider myself an independent advocate and at least as far as this context is, a voice for the unhoused community.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. That's what I'm talking about. All right. So we have a question for each of you. So Justin, what catalyst got you involved with the city council?
I think my run for political office, public office, I think started with Wolfpack, Rhode Island. And I was always engaged at a very young age when it comes to politics. I caught the political bug very early in my life. But when I graduated from high school, went to college, I began to really educate myself on the issues. And then, I got involved into Wolfpack through the Young Turks. And eventually I began organizing in my state. And that, I think, set me on the path to public office. I think, though, my personal, upbringing, I grew up really at the intersection of drug addiction, homelessness, incarceration. And that began to inform my worldview. And then I found politics as a way to eradicate those social ills that I've experienced. And I didn't want the people in my community to have to experience what I did growing up. That led me to social work. Excuse me, my daughter's crying in the background. Sorry, one second. All right, 1 second. All right, mamas. All right. You're going to do this with me, okay? All right. All right. Sorry, y'all. All right. So I, she wants to be on camera. That's right. So I eventually became a social worker, continued to stay engaged in my community. And I think, to be very honest with you, I think there there wasn't a lot of diversity of thought and perspective in our local government,
Mm-hmm.
and it was the same old incrementalism kind of thinking. They kind of sort of tempered your expectations. It was this institutional forces that would tell residents in my city that take what you could get, take the breadcrumbs. And I was like, I didn't want to be the one to run, but at some point you say to yourself, who's it going to be then? And so I decided to run for office with, in fact, campaign finance reform at the forefront. And my friend and good brother Josh Asis again was there for me and stepped in the role as campaign manager, sort of after hours. And so he was the full-time national director. And then when he ended that, he was stepped into a role of campaign manager. And so I got elected a few months ago, took office in January, and we're already introducing, I think, legislation that is not incremental in nature, that's radical, that's going to change the material conditions of the folks in my city. We're tackling the price gouging of big landlords, corporate landlords in our city. I think that's not anything new across the country, and I would love to talk more about how money in politics plays a part in that. But I'm really privileged and honored to be in this position. And I'll just say this, and I'm probably going on a tangent here, so excuse me, y'all. But I'm a new father, and I always felt that I need to stay true to who I am, make sure that I don't sell my values out while I'm in this position. But having being a new father, I think my daughter is my new moral compass. And 10 years down the road, when I leave public office, I don't want her Googling my name and finding out that her father wasn't on the right side of issues. And so I'm just, I'm really fortunate to be in public office right now and realize that we need to act with urgency. And so, but I think all of this started with Wolfpack.
All right. Wonderful. I feel you. Certainly. Oh, that's great. Brandon, how did you get started in this fight?
Oh my goodness. Well, first off, I became involved with Rights and Democracy as a member in 2018. And we're a multi-issue organization focusing on things like housing, healthcare, environmental justice, raising the minimum wage, taking money out of politics, all that good stuff. But particularly in my area of Manchester, which is the biggest city in the state, about an hour north of Boston, increasingly our members, and including me, were struggling to find affordable housing. And it was around this time that I was actually evicted, and I did not know my rights. The landlord wanted to sell the house without anybody in it. I didn't know that she didn't notify me in the proper way. I didn't know that I actually could have stayed longer than the date on the sheet of paper that she typed up arbitrarily. I didn't know that I had more time. So as a result, I panicked, moved into the next place, and it wasn't very good. We had problems keeping it warm in the winter. It was just an old, dilapidated house. And that's true for a lot of folks who are evicted. They struggle to find housing stability preceding an eviction. But where this really began in earnest was in 2020, after I became an organizer with Rights and Democracy, working on many different issues. I kept finding housing to be one of the most compelling issues that was facing our membership, who are middle and lower income. And around November of 2020, there was an encampment here in Manchester, a homeless encampment that was about 50 to 70 folks living on a state courthouse lawn. There were only 6 shelter beds available in the entire state. Now, do the math here. 6 minus 50. Does that equal 0? No. But the thing about it is there was no plan for them to go. They just wanted this encampment gone because it was visible. And there are 2 things that you can do when it comes to things like these. One is house people, or 2, use the police, get them gone and have them go somewhere else and start the problem all over again.
Mm-hmm.
So we got folks together. We did round the clock protests and police watches and to watch for sweeps until more shelter beds were open.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually the camp did get cleared anyway, but we were able to delay until folks were able to find shelter.
Right.
So going through all of this, made us realize that the services out there are just not there for the unsheltered because
Mm-hmm.
they do not have the political influence
Mm-hmm.
that landlords, developers do, who
Mm-hmm.
again often sit on the boards of the charities who
Mm-hmm.
are providing homeless services through private
Mm-hmm.
organizations. So they get to make all of the money. They get all the best land. They get all the tax cuts. They are the ones creating homelessness, and then they get to sit on the boards of these homelessness nonprofits, and they get to whitewash their reputations. So
Wow.
a lot of what we do is blowing up that image right there and saying, no, these folks are deliberately causing this crisis, and
Mm-hmm.
they are responsible for fixing it. So I'll
Wow.
rant all day if you let me there.
I bet. Shoot. Well, I very grateful to have you here, Brandon. Um, Great stuff. Andrew, you're still here? I keep hearing
Yeah,
notifications that okay.
yeah. No, I'm still here. I was trying to. So I'm using borrowed
Okay.
equipment, and I'm not familiar with it. I didn't want to accidentally exit and have to start over, so I was trying to
Right.
access the link that was posted in the chat from my
Mm-hmm.
phone, which
Mm-hmm.
was not connected to the meeting. And I'm not super technically savvy, but hey,
Understood.
I'm gonna send my friends a link so that they can watch on YouTube as well. Who wants the
Excellent.
link?
Highly appreciate you. Highly appreciate you. So Andrew,
No, I already got it.
are you willing to explain to us how you ended up houseless?
Yeah. Just okay. Sending the link. I'll go back to my. So I first became houseless in 2013. Close that so I can see. I became houseless in 2013 following a mutually agreeable divorce. We ended up getting divorced because she came out of the closet, and we both individually realized that each of us would be happier if we went our separate ways. So
Mm-hmm.
the town that we lived in was real small. Oakhurst, California, if anybody wants to look it up on a map. And there was just no opportunities for me. She and I didn't have any assets at the time, so it was fairly easy, kind of a simple process. And I packed a bag and had her give me a ride back to my hometown in Orange County. And I just started kind of hitchhiking around the country.
Mm-hmm. Mm. So it all kind of started with just having a relationship that didn't work out.
Right.
Mhm. Yeah, I think I've heard that story before too.
That's a
Um,
fairly common one. Yeah.
yeah, appreciate you, Andrew.
Thank you.
All right. So, we have some other questions here. So we're gonna go around the room and answer these three questions. How and why is this personal to you? I think some of us kind of went into this a little bit, so if you feel like you're repeating yourself, just don't. What motivates you to do this work? And who are the most affected populations you see needing help? Um, so Justin, gonna start with you again.
Yeah, I think I believe Lemay's point, the at the municipal level, we have a lot of unhoused folks in my city who I
Mm-hmm.
think if you connect the dots, um, money in politics has sort of prioritize the wealthy donors and not the folks who are in need of housing and
Mm-hmm.
other basic needs.
Mm-hmm.
Similar, I'm not surprised, but I believe Lemay may have mentioned New Hampshire, but I could have mistaken the location, but it's very similar here in Rhode Island and in the city of Providence about the landscape. I've actually had three encampments in my neighborhood, and that has caused a stir of a controversy. In our state, there is shelter beds are at capacity, And in fact, and the other issues that we have really no what I would call low barrier shelter for folks, where shelter would be welcoming, where we don't have strict curfews, where sobriety isn't the expectation, where you could bring you could bring your pets, or where we have sort of you could bring your significant other. That's non-existent, and so folks, truthfully, and I don't blame them, would prefer to live outside, but we don't have shelter capacity in this state, and yet we keep moving folks, and not really solving the problem, but moving folks like musical chairs. And while we give tax breaks to real estate developers to build more luxury housing that we can't afford to live in.
Right. 100%. All right. Yep. All that's true. Brandon, same things. Why and/or how is this personal to you? What motivates you to do this work? And who are the most affected populations you see needing help?
Oh my goodness. Well, oh, that's such a big question.
I know.
So what's really funny is originally I wasn't the most like I don't want to say passionate organizer when it comes to like homelessness. It just felt like the area that was the most glaring. That's where the inequality is, where I think it becomes visible. Homelessness is a policy choice, and it's a visible policy choice. It's a visible policy failure. So I became involved with the unsheltered population in Manchester right around before that encampment I told you about in 2020. So I was giving mutual aid out with friends, to the unsheltered population, and we would just strike up conversations about people's experience. We would talk about how they got kicked out of the shelter because they wanted to go smoke a cigarette in the middle of the night, because it's probably one of the few joys that they have left in life. Just really arbitrary rules. Or even just general mistreatment from the general population, the police, or even from social workers who are supposed to be helping them. So that's kind of how it became really personal to me and to my friends here, because it really did encroach upon these personal friendships that we were making with the unhoused. As well. And I always want to say that I don't know everybody in this room, but I'm going to assume that all of us are closer to homelessness than we are to being billionaires. And
yeah, that's
fight,
more true than you think.
This fight right here is not me saying I'm better and I'm privileged and I'm speaking for those without voices. No, not at all. I am fighting for me. I am fighting for my community. I'm fighting for my friends. Because if we don't defend them, then who's next? Right. And I want to state, too, that the rhetoric that we see around homelessness mirrors xenophobic rhetoric that we see. I'm sure wherever you are in your locality, if you're in a relatively urban area, you'll hear things like, oh, well, everyone sends their homeless here. Why don't people fix their own problems before coming here? Why don't we just send them back? And it's really concerning the way that even elected politicians talk about the unsheltered. It's completely dehumanizing. Here at the city level, we've had aldermen, who are basically city councilors in Manchester, refer to the unsheltered as swill, as scum, as vagrants, as a burden to society. And what really irritates me is that, I could get 50 people to call an alderman to say, hey, we need housing first as a means, not just shelters. Shelters are not enough. Shelters are not enough. But if we get 50 people to call that alderman, all right, whatever. You get one business owner that said that a homeless person looked at a customer as they're walking into the building, they'll send a police patrol over there to make sure that never happens again. So really, who is listened to? And while I'm ranting too, one thing I want to really emphasize here is in housing, who needs housing the most right now, right? The unhoused. Those making, those on fixed incomes. Those who are, making the, 50% to 0% of the median income. But what housing are we building first? We're building luxury high rises. We're building luxury condos. And that's the thing about our society is who gets prioritized first. It's not the people who need the housing. The people who are making, 50, 70, 90, $100,000 a year, yes, they need housing too, but they don't
Mhm.
need housing nearly as badly as somebody on the streets.
Right.
Why are we building
They
housing?
certainly don't need second housing.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. We prioritize people's second homes over
Mhm.
people's first home.
Mhm.
So, that kind of influence right there, it makes us have to work so much harder than
Mhm.
that business owner or that real estate developer,
Mhm.
but it doesn't dissuade us.
Right.
Hmm.
That's yeah. Man, I hate hearing the way people talk about homeless people. Um, it's gross. Andrew, same to you. How is this personal to you? What motivates you to do this work? And who are the most affected populations you see needing help?
So for me, it's a very personal issue because I myself am currently unhoused. I
Hmm.
live in my vehicle. Uh, so I'm pretty grateful for the chance, the opportunity to be here and to make my voice and struggles, and not only my struggles, but just the struggles of houseless people in general, who
Hmm.
just don't get listened to.
Hmm.
Make those struggles heard and bring awareness to them in a professional, official setting. Um, and my motivation for accepting Anita's invite to do this, because I was a little bit iffy at first. I don't like public speaking, even on things like this. Like it
Hmm.
makes me freaking nervous.
Hmm.
But my motivation was the hope that I can help bring some awareness and compassion to some of the maybe lesser known issues that the unhoused community faces on a daily basis.
Hmm.
Um, the two most the two groups that I've observed that need the most help amongst the unhoused community
Hmm.
are, number one, uh, LGBTQ youth,
Hmm.
generally ages 13 to 24. According to the
Hmm.
Trevor Project, 28% of LGBTQ youth across the board reported experiencing, quote, homelessness or housing instability at some point in their lives.
Hmm.
That's messed up. Like, there's no reason
For
a
damn
13
sure.
to 24-year-old should ever be homeless in this country. Like,
Hmm.
there's no, that shouldn't be a thing.
Hmm.
And the second most group that I've seen that just gets largely ignored is unhoused people with either visible or especially invisible disabilities, mental
Hmm.
illnesses.
Hmm.
Maybe uh, they're physically disabled,
Hmm.
and have no options for income or anything like that. Those
Hmm.
people often get overlooked as well.
Hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. Um, all right. So I know for a fact that I didn't grow up unhoused or anything, but my mom, she was always working all the time. And she did say that if she had to prioritize keeping a roof over our heads because, we were kind of food insecure. Um, and so, and I have had experiences with homeless people, though. I had one interesting experience when one time I was actually calling for Wolfpack, actually, and ended up getting in touch with a houseless woman. And I remember trying my darndest to help this person. Like, she was like somewhere in like Nevada, and she was like living under some freeway or something, and I think she was like 65, 70 years old. And I was just like, oh, hell no. Like, we've got to try to fix this. And I called like all sorts of different places. And I just couldn't get anyone to help her. And even called her family, and her family was just like, ugh, like it was hard for even get her family to help her. Like there was just like nothing. I hope she's doing okay. Um, but, but yeah, like I tried my darndest to help her, and I just like no one was there. Like I couldn't. I mean, I was calling people all over the place, and I couldn't get anyone to help her. It was really sad. Walking around town with other blind friends. I remember going to Chicago and watching people standing out in front of the pizza places trying to get food, you know, houseless people. And one person helped us get somewhere here in Lincoln, and he was talking about going dumpster diving and talking about, meeting other homeless people under bridges and stuff. And yeah, it's just really sad to see. It's a tragedy I absolutely despise. I wish wasn't a thing, and it doesn't have to be a thing. And if we have our way here at Wolfpack, one day it won't be a thing. Okay. So, Andrew, are you willing to tell us what your average day looks like as a houseless person?
Yeah. And I actually I spent a good portion of last night, carefully considering my answers for these questions because I wanted to be as astute and concise as possible.
Mm-hmm.
In a way that everyone can understand. So I rewrote my answers a couple times, but as far as an average day, there's pretty much two different kinds of averages for me. Living in my vehicle full time, I generally refer to them as good averages or bad averages.
Mm-hmm.
So on a good average day, I generally wake up at 9, 10 a.m. usually, take my dogs out. I have two big dogs, take them out to go use the bathroom, figure out what I want to eat, and then check and see if I have enough money to go eat what I want to eat. If I don't, or if I just don't have food or money for food, then generally I'll go out and panhandle for a couple hours, and then go get some food, and just kind of hang out with my dogs. Bad average day just starts off bad by either being woken up way earlier than my body's ready for by either a police officer or an employee from whatever store or truck stop that I had parked at for the night, telling me basically, hey, you can't be here, you got to move along right now, under the threat of either, if it's a police officer directly, under the threat of being written a ticket for various made-up infractions, or if it's not directly the police waking me up, the threat of having them called. And those days they're just rough all day because it sets the tone for the entire rest of the day, and it just puts me in a really bad headspace.
Right. I bet. I appreciate you sharing all that, Andrew. That's
It's rough sometimes.
yeah, it just sounds like it. Anita, I know that you're paying attention to the comments or questions, but I don't want your voice to be completely out of this conversation either. Do you have anything to say about everything so far?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that last part? I didn't quite catch the end of what you said.
Oh, I just wanted to ask your thoughts on any of this stuff here because I know you're doing questions and stuff, but I don't want you to be completely left out if you can help it.
Okay, yeah. So, Andrew, it's like Andrew said, we're pretty good friends, and I think it's been like 5 years, Andrew, 6 years maybe.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. So houselessness is also personal to me because I am disabled. I have mental health issues and physical issues. If I didn't have my partners, I would be on the streets. So, it's hard. I'm one of those that I live in fear of, like, if everything were to be washed away from my life, I would have nowhere to go. I'd have nowhere to fall. I have, like, my safety net is my family, and if I lose that, then I have nothing. And so becoming houseless, becoming unhoused is a real fear of mine.
I think that's pretty common, Anita, is for that to be a very common fear amongst people, especially people that have never experienced houselessness. It's the stigma around it makes it just utterly terrifying.
It sounds hard.
I mean, it's not easy.
We have some other questions. Yeah, I remember briefly being houseless with my mom when I was like 4 or 5 years old, living in her car when we were forced to move back to California. I road trip now, but that's like not the same. It's not
Right.
the same to just drive around and live in your van for a little while, because you have a bank account, you have backup stuff. It's not the same. So
Right.
being completely without money or help in this society, it's terrifying.
Mm-hmm. Definitely appreciate your thoughts, Anita. And I'm so sorry you have to deal with that. I mean, like, ugh. Um, so we heard a little bit about we heard from Andrew about his daily struggles. Um, I was wondering what other trials and hardships do houseless people face on a daily basis? Justin, Brandon, Andrew again.
I think in my experience of like being um, essentially the last month a proxy outreach worker.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think in my community, what I've noticed is I think this was already mentioned. Um, ongoing police surveillance,
Mm-hmm.
um, uh, ongoing raids of encampments.
Mm-hmm.
In general, depending on where an encampment is established in a community, um, I happen, in my neighborhood, there's a small sliver of affluent folks who
Mm-hmm.
live, pretty affluent conservative folks, and there was an encampment that was established nearby, and there was a coordinated campaign among these residents to aggressively push them out. And and it was sad to watch that play out. And so I feared for the folks at this encampment, their safety. There was a lot of hostility, a lot of threats to their life. And so ultimately, as city councilor, in my view, I represent everyone, and I was clear to the neighbors nearby that as long as these folks are in my neighborhood, they're my constituents as well. Just because they don't have a physical address does not
Mm-hmm.
mean I do not represent them. They are my constituents. So ultimately, what happened was to keep these folks safe from the hostility they were facing. We're
Mm-hmm.
talking around the clock harassment.
Mm-hmm.
I had moved these folks to a different site. I brought a truck, and the only way I was able to do that um, was a strong rapport that I had built with them. It was not ideal, but I think their life was seriously at risk. And
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of there's a stigma out there that folks who are unhoused are dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And but I'm more concerned about the folks who see these folks from perhaps a perspective they've garnered from conservative news or created a sort of a distortion in their mind of what in-house folks are like.
Mm-hmm.
And but I'm concerned about I was more concerned about those folks who were dangerous making threats to the in-house neighbors
Mm-hmm.
nearby.
Mm-hmm.
So that's in my experience. I think it's literal threats to own life
Mm-hmm.
that they have to experience every single day, and it's really tragic.
Yeah, sure is. Have anything to add to that, Brandon?
Yeah, so I just want to kind of bring us back to like the meta level because I think that we've heard really good firsthand accounts of people who are unhoused.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to state that the issues that they're facing is fundamentally an affordability problem.
Mm-hmm.
And the stigma that I want to break up is that homelessness is a moral failing, that it is caused primarily by mental health and drug use. While those
Mm-hmm.
things are factors, the biggest correlation, which the biggest causation of homelessness actually,
Mm-hmm.
is cost. The,
Mm-hmm.
the, the areas with the highest drug uses, with the highest drug use rates, are not the places with the highest amount of homelessness. It's the
Mm-hmm.
places with the most expensive housing. And the
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
problem
drugs are expensive.
Drugs are really expensive. And also housed people use drugs all the damn time. All right. And you know, there are a lot of people, and I don't really like the word functional when it comes to like an alcoholic or like a drug user, but there are a lot of people that we would categorize that way, and they can keep their housing until their housing is unaffordable. And that's just what I want to bring this to. So yeah, I was thinking to say it's like I really just want to break up the stigma that it's like a mental health or a moral failure or because of like drug use. And I think that mental health and drug use increase as a result of homelessness.
Right.
Rather than vice versa. Yep. And
yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I mean, that's exactly right. Also, like I said, I've been technically houseless since 2013. I've couch surfed on different friends' living rooms occasionally, and lived with a partner for a little bit, but I didn't really ever have anything in my name since 2013. We're talking about the trials and hardships that houseless people face. The most common one that I've personally experienced is NIMBYism, which is exactly what y'all were talking about with the housed people. They don't care that houseless people exist as long as they don't have to look at us, right? And what the results of that, it ends up with people voting to pass this anti-houseless legislation, such as anti-panhandling laws, loitering laws, short parking limits, which affect houseless people like myself who live in their vehicles, overnight parking restrictions, and banning things like sitting on sidewalks. Like, who is somebody harming by sitting on the sidewalk? Like, maybe their legs hurt, maybe they're tired, who cares? Let them sit down. Build benches even, good hygiene is also a struggle for I would say the majority of unhoused people, because a lot of businesses either only allow paying customers to use the restroom or have no public restrooms at all, and that's just a sink and a toilet, not to mention a shower or other bathing facilities. And from firsthand experience, truck stop showers are almost $20 a piece.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And of course, if it's difficult for you to get any money, like, you're kind of screwed, aren't you?
Right. $20 is 2 days worth of food if I, or more if I budget it right.
Yeah.
Right.
Can I just add? I don't want to cut Andrew off because Andrew's kind of spitting here. But the thing about it is, oftentimes, and I'm going to use "we" as like a very vague concept, is we want contradicting things, right? Like, for instance, I wrote in the chat, there's a problem with like human waste, in the streets or like in the trails around the outskirts, right? But we don't want to do public bathrooms because that enables, bad behavior, right?
Right.
People complain about needles on the ground, which, by the way, probably also come from people living in houses.
Yeah, most of the time.
But I've talked with multiple aldermen. They don't want to give us sharps containers. They don't want to they don't want to do a sanctioned needle exchange. So, you want both things or you don't want both things at the same time. Those are contradicting. You don't want to see the unsheltered people as you're going to walk in to get your $7 latte, which I'm guilty of, right? But we don't want to give housing as an option, as the first option to addressing homelessness. So we're kind of like a walking contradiction here as a society.
I mean, there are times when, honestly, it feels downright malicious. In certain cities that I've been through, it feels like there is a specific vendetta against the unhoused community simply because they don't own property in that city.
Yeah, it's class warfare.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. Yeah, this is all very important to hear, because now we're going to get into how corruption affects all this stuff, which is the meat and potatoes.
I'd like to address one of the comments that I looked at in the chat just now. Jeff said, hygiene is also easy to overlook and destroys our self-worth when we can't get clean. That is absolutely correct. Like, people that can't bathe on a regular basis that definitely it causes morale to plummet because you don't want to go into a restaurant and get food because everybody's going to be, making faces because you smell bad, or your clothes are dirty, and it's just an additional level of societal shame that is placed onto the unhoused community through no fault of their own.
Right. And then you hear all this crap about, well, how come they can't get a job or how come they can't do this? Well, I mean, if you walk into a job and you don't have the right clothes, you don't have the right smell on you, you don't have,
right.
How many
Exactly that.
people are going to be like, oh, yeah, I'm going to hire you now,
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just a big mess. It's a huge, horrible mess. So how does corruption affect the cost of living? Justin, got anything to say?
Sure. Yeah, I've actually one of the issues that rises to the top for me, besides sort of the rising cost of rent or housing, right now in the city of Providence, there is an ongoing issue and fight against tax exempt institutions such as Ivy League private schools that have continued to expand, and they're technically nonprofits, and nonprofits don't pay property taxes, and so as they continue to expand, they eat up valuable land, and so we have a lot of universities and colleges that are our largest landowner in our city, and half of the land, almost half of the land in our city, is not is tax exempt. We cannot apply a property tax levy on these institutions. So what that has done is force our city to raise property taxes on mom and pop landlords, which has had a, not that I buy into this narrative completely, because I think there's a lot of price gouging, but that ultimately does pass over the cost to renters to some extent, and it raises the cost of living for everyone. It's also, in our city, when almost half the land cannot be taxed, that cuts into city services. So in the city of Providence, we over rely on property tax revenue to fund public education, public safety. I mean, the list goes on. And so that ultimately goes back to the corrupting influence of money in politics, because these institutions have such a lobbying force and unlimited amounts of money to sway. Oh, I'm sorry, my dog's crying. To sway the decision making in our city. They have, there's so much money, and even local politics that has engineered our city's government in ways that don't benefit regular residents. So that is a issue that I'm currently fighting right now. That's in the spotlight for our city right now. Is the lobbying influence and the money that comes with that from these tax exempt institutions who have honestly exploited the residents of this city for decades. So I hope that makes sense.
It does. Okay, Brandon, I saw you were like ready and willing to talk about this. I think I heard you put something in the comments. So
Yeah. So one thing I want to mention quickly is that according to HUD, a renter is cost burdened if their rent and utilities exceeds more than 30% of household income. And so a big part of those housing costs and those utilities is electricity. Here in New Hampshire, we actually received a rate double to that to other states in New England. And you say, why? Like, we're all on the same grid. We all have pretty similar power production. Well, the answer is our governor, Chris Sununu, is really close to Eversource, which has a virtual monopoly in the state. So the way that we try to counter this monopoly is that we have something called the Public Utilities Commission, who
Mm-hmm.
is appointed by the governor, who is getting donations from Eversource, who are sending their executives to max out donations to this governor. They will actually donate virtually unlimited funds to what we have just called an inaugural fund here in New Hampshire, which
Mm-hmm.
is just saying that it's basically a slush fund for a sitting governor to spend
Mm-hmm.
on their inauguration, but then they can move that money elsewhere after the fact. So
Mm-hmm.
we have hundreds of thousands of dollars in election cycle coming from these very special interests to grease the palm of our governor, who then
Mm-hmm.
appoints the people who approve the rate hikes, which has made the skyrocketing rents that Granite Staters are facing even
Mm-hmm.
worse with skyrocketing electricity. And that's not even to touch upon any of the developer side of things who use their
Mm-hmm.
influence at the municipal level, again, to get all the best tax breaks, to get all the best public land for the least amount of concessions in return.
Mm-hmm.
And this permeates through virtually every single aspect of our society.
Mm. Wow. Yeah, that's really sad to hear. That's horrible. Um, you have any thoughts on this too, Andrew?
I do. Um, Honestly, the biggest way that the corruption has affected the cost of living for me personally
Mm-hmm.
is by occasionally receiving citations or tickets for panhandling.
Mm-hmm.
It's very common, and in itself is an extremely predatory and vicious cycle, because in order to pay a panhandling citation, an unhoused person would have to then go and panhandle more, which puts them at risk for receiving yet another citation. And
Mm-hmm.
it just devolves into a huge snowball effect, which for many unhoused people ends up resulting in them getting arrested and gaining a criminal record
Mm-hmm.
when their only crime was just trying to survive on a day-to-day basis.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So basically,
Um,
it's this huge reinforcing feedback loop where you basically try to get money, and then you're asked to pay for something when it means you need more money, and then you're asked to
right,
do something. This is just a big,
right.
horrible. Ugh. Right.
And it's designed that way intentionally, because most states and cities, it's not actually illegal to panhandle, but they
Mm-hmm.
put restrictions on it that are
Mm-hmm.
often kind of obscure and confusing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can only do it in certain places, or you're supposed to have a permit.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't meet all the requirements, then they can ticket you.
Right. Right. Wow. That's okay. This really needs to stop. Okay.
It's pretty messed up.
So, any do we have like any other stories, especially that kind of illustrates just how widespread the corruption is in other ways that it really affects the lives of people? We're just looking for it all here.
Yeah. Um,
Um,
how widespread is the corruption? Yes. I mean,
just yes.
in all seriousness, though, the unhoused community is actually one of the most vulnerable groups of people in the country today, because the fact that we don't have stable housing or a solid address makes us easy targets for corrupt police officers who are trying to increase their arrest numbers for the month, or maybe look good in the eyes of their coworkers, or add to their eligibility for promotions and different awards and things. Any officer you ever talk to will tell you, no, we don't have a quota for writing tickets. And sure, legally they don't have a quota, but they are encouraged to write tickets because it looks good on their official record that, oh, they wrote so many citations this month. They arrested 37 people. That's up 3% from last month. Good job.
Right.
I just really want to emphasize that, yeah, the unsheltered are some of our most vulnerable populations, and mostly because of the dehumanizing rhetoric that we see towards the unsheltered. And it really concerns me, because if we can dehumanize the people in our own communities, the people who just need a little bit of help, who else in our society can we dehumanize?
Yeah.
I saw a
I
comment.
mean, go
I
ahead,
saw a
Andrew.
comment on the chat from Chris that said ordinances do not override the Constitution. Yes, that is true, but in order to make a corrupt police officer believe that, you'd have to file a lawsuit. And if I am flying a sign, if I'm panhandling to get enough money for myself and my dogs to eat, where am I going to come up with the money for a lawyer to make that officer respect the Constitution rather than their own feelings?
Yeah, exactly.
My friend who's actually watching the YouTube stream, who's borrowing the equipment, said, you said three? The city we're in right now has three different ordinances against panhandling.
Three.
Okay. Okay. He said the block that my vehicle's parked on is a specific zone where it's illegal to panhandle because there are two banks there, something like that. And not only that, but they also removed all of the benches off the sidewalk on that block.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
I would actually,
Jeez.
if it's okay, I would like to give an example too here in Manchester,
Mm-hmm.
us trying to use ordinances to hurt the unhoused.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a string of free parking that was in front of I talk about coffee a lot, sorry. In front of a coffee shop that I really like. And allegedly there was some person a couple blocks down who called the police and said people are doing drugs in their car.
Mm-hmm.
Mind you, there was no arrests, there was no reports of anything. And what they did, this one person that called the city was well connected and
Mm-hmm.
also a donor. So what they did was they used a snow emergency order in the middle of the summer
Mm-hmm.
to ban parking in that area so that nobody could do drugs in their car, allegedly. And what this did was it obviously hurt the people that were just trying to park somewhere. But also, I want to emphasize less so, it hurt the business owner because now his customers and his employees didn't have a place to park anymore. It hurt the people that lived around the building that just wanted a place to park.
Right.
This was all because of one wealthy donor made a phone call to the police department and then made a call to the mayor's office.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing. They listened to that person and they are willing to close off an entire block of parking because of alleged behavior that was never actually documented.
Mm-hmm. Jeez, that's insane.
As messed up as it is, that's way more common than most people think it is.
Mm-hmm. Wow. That's insane. Okay, so what other ways have you all witnessed people get left behind due to the corrupt system that we have in this country?
Anybody got
Justin,
anything before I start my rant?
Justin, you got anything to say?
I'll let my the other folks answer this.
Okay.
On, Andrew.
Andrew, go.
So one of the biggest and most blatant ways that I've seen people get left behind because of the system is that, particularly people in the houseless community, without a recognized address, you cannot get an identification or driver's license. Without those things, you're more susceptible to being arrested, more frequently at least. So more likely to be arrested because they can't just look at your ID and be like, oh yeah, it's you. They have to arrest you and take you down to the station and fingerprint you. At least that's what they say. They could just leave you alone, but do they? No. You also can't pick up prescription medications from pharmacies without an ID. You can't apply for government assistance of any kind, including EBT or food stamps or emergency funds for like clothing, baby formula, etc. Without a solid address, you cannot get an accepted form of photo identification, and that makes life exponentially more difficult.
Yeah, it just sounds like it. Any other thoughts on this? Anybody? Brandon, got anything?
I mean, how much time do I have? No, I don't want to sound like a broken record here, but again, this system prioritizes some people over others. So I just really want to emphasize what kind of housing is being built first. And it's not for the people who actually need it the most. And one thing I want to say too, an example of who's being left behind increasingly, the shelters here in Manchester are being overrun by people who are just elderly or disabled. And there's no other factor in their lives other than the fact they're on fixed incomes, and their fixed incomes cannot pay for their rent. And they hold vouchers that landlords refuse to take. We also ban source of income discrimination. So I want to say that I believe that one of the most effective ways of fighting homelessness, and there are many, there's no one solution, but keeping people in their housing.
Right.
I believe that one of the best ways to do that is to advocate for more tenant rights.
Right.
I would like to see more protections on how much rent can be raised. I would like to see a cap of 3 to 5%, or inflation, whatever's lower. But the problem is every time that we try to advocate for these basic tenant protections at the state house, we end up seeing well-funded landlord real estate interests who are lobbying actively against these protections.
Right.
And who are then also lobbying for new housing to be built. This sounds wonderful, right?
Right.
Interests don't want to be building the housing that isn't as profitable.
Right.
Our government is prioritizing. We don't build public housing anymore. We're not building co-ops for these folks. We're building, again, privately owned luxury condos that are owned by well-funded, groups that are well-organized.
100%. Yep. And I'm grateful to you, Brandon, because you literally just pretty much answered the question I was about to ask about the kind of policies we have evidence works as well, and the kinds of opposition they get when good people try to fight for them. So you had answered that question already. Any other thoughts about that question, Justin or Andrew?
I got some.
Okay.
One of the policies that I recently heard about, it's actually a policy in California, LA County, I believe, that is both data-driven and effective, is called full service partnerships. Basically, they're programs that have, let's see, I made a note here, multidisciplinary teams consisting of clinicians, paraprofessionals, and consumers that provide a wealth of resources and support. For example, the Homeless FSP, which is the name of the program, focuses on the houseless population, stabilized mental health symptoms, and reintegration into the community. People oppose these programs because even though they save the state of California an average of $3 for every $1 that the program costs, the programs cost more upfront, and they just don't want to shell out the money upfront. The people who generally oppose programs like that, because they cost more upfront, seem to generally be corrupt, greedy, money-driven politicians. Because with policies and programs that actually benefit the majority of people, it's much more difficult for an individual to profit off of those things.
Yeah. Wow. Anything you want to add, Justin?
I think it's really for me difficult to pinpoint another issue that traces back to big money in politics, because I know this is a cliche saying, but it truly is the root of all evil, but it has its hands in every pot, essentially, and the issues are interconnected, and it could be traced back to the influence of big money in politics. I think for me, obviously, in all levels of government, but at the city level, their neighborhoods are also segregated by not just race, but also by class. And obviously, you know, it's well understood that wealthy donors dominate our government, and this is where it's difficult for me to pinpoint another issue, because just wealthy donors are able to make decisions that bring resources back to them. It could be a whole host of things, but they have the capacity, the financial capacity, to spend unlimited amounts on elections, and in return, it comes back to, you know, it's a return on investment. It comes back to benefit them at maybe the most minimum of things, such as well paved streets in their neighborhood. And so it's at the municipal level, it has its shadings in a very direct way. You know, when you're a wealthy donor of for example, of a mayor's campaign, you make one call, and you're going to get specialized treatment. If that even, again, well paved streets, or even garbage collection. I mean, it gets that simple and direct. But they have so much influence in every decision, when you're wealthy, and when you're a donor of political campaigns.
Right. 100%.
And Justin, to add to that, something that you said reminded me of a saying that I've heard a couple of times, and it's something along the lines of, if you give $600 to somebody that knows how to make money, they'll turn it into $6,000 within a year. If you give $600 to a poor, or, you know, let's just say houseless person, for example, they're just going to spend it. Well, see, it's really easy to turn $600 into $6,000 if you already have housing and food security, medication security. If you are already in a position where you don't need that $600 in order to survive your day-to-day life, sure, it's just, you know, just sit on it, put it in a bank with some high interest rate or whatnot. But for people that are in, you know, position like I am, and like tens of thousands of other Americans, $600, that's that would pay for a very important repair on my vehicle, for example.
Right.
But it would be gone all at once.
Yep.
Could I just say that actually $600 in the hands of a really, we'll say, a poor middle income person actually does get turned into $6,000 pretty quickly, because that money is injected right into the economy. And that even if that $600 that you gave to somebody was spent frivolously, that is economic activity. I talk about the fact that I get $7 lattes a little too much. Well, the U.S. economy runs on frivolous purchases like that. So yeah, you know, the $600 that you spend probably on things that you need is going to be respent further along the chain in the economy. It's actually better. It's actually better. We, and I'm saying we because I'm sure that we're all more in the same economic class. We actually drive commerce and economic exchange amongst each other way more than a millionaire or a billionaire would, who would just put it into an index fund, or you know, they would, you know, again, investing it. What does that actually do?
The only thing it does is build personal wealth, which is something that society sees as a virtue. Whereas if you're poor or broke, you must not be a good person. You must have done something wrong. I've been told that. I don't even know how many times I've been told that.
Yeah, you spend too much money on avocado toast, y'all.
Andrew, how many times have you been told, oh, well, why didn't you apply for this program? And you said, I did. It didn't have what I needed.
If I'm actively, you know, panhandling most days, because some days I make enough money where I can be like, I think I'll just hang out with my dogs or go sit in a park tomorrow and do nothing, you know. But if I'm at a place, or, you know, a situation, or like if I'm trying to save up for something, for example, like vehicle repairs, you know, probably at least once every month or two, sometimes more. Sometimes I'll go 2 months, 3 months without hearing that, but inevitably somebody will always be like, well, did you know they have this program or that program or whatnot?
Hmm.
And my answer is just like, yeah, actually, I do know that they have that because I tried it. They're
Hmm.
like, oh, well, what about this such and such a homeless shelter? I was like, are they going to let two 80-pound dogs in there? No, they're not.
Right.
And I'm not giving up my dogs.
Right.
I'm a dog person, so I empathize so hard here.
Right. I love dogs. I grew up with dogs. Like I've always loved dogs. So I definitely get you there. So what is everyone's thoughts on mutual aid's effectiveness, both short term and long term?
I've been waiting for this one.
If no one else has anything to say, then Andrew, you can go. Justin,
All
Brandon,
right.
anything?
I just don't want to speak after Andrew, to be honest.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
I can be really brief, but I did mention that the relationships that I developed with our unhoused community
Uh-huh.
stemmed from mutual aid. And
Hmm.
I'm talking about real mutual aid where you're viewing people as equals.
Hmm.
You're not there to be like, oh, you poor individual, I'm so good,
Right. Right.
giving you out like little shampoo bottles or something like that.
Right.
But real mutual aid where you're building solidarity
Hmm.
with other volunteers, with the people that you are serving,
Hmm.
it is really crucial. I think that if it's being done deliberately, the mutual aid group that I associate with is
Hmm.
explicitly anti-capitalist, and
Hmm.
that the act of giving out things for nothing in return, which includes power. We don't want to be able
Hmm.
to lord our aid. We like to say solidarity, not charity,
Hmm.
because we are helping each other. We're not just being like we're not the charities that the developers sit on the boards of. We're actually real people out here.
Right. All right. Anything,
Justin, you got anything?
anything,
Yeah,
Justin?
I think mutual aid is the way to um I think build. I'm just so let me just I've had this conversation with a colleague of mine,
Hmm.
and the more I uh grow into my position and the more time I spend as a city councilor, in fact, the less I am convinced that true change can happen in a political system. I actually
Hmm.
think mutual aid campaigns are the most impactful way to directly impact those who are most vulnerable, and
Hmm.
just not just that. I think mutual aid campaigns can help um, uh, can help get folks into the political system. Like I'm actually building up a mutual aid campaign
Hmm.
uh, separate from my positioning as a counselor, but one of my projects, long-term projects, is to make this public housing complex in my neighborhood one of the strongest voting blocks in our city. And I
Hmm.
think the one mechanism to do that is through a mutual aid campaign where I get folks uh, to believe in the process, but it's obviously got to be done on trust, and I think to Lemay's point, not this transactional sort of
Hmm.
piece to it.
Hmm.
But I actually think um, if we want to really reach people, we do it through mutual aid campaigns and not the political system. I know that seems very nihilistic, and
Hmm.
maybe it's just how I'm feeling right now.
Hmm.
But I thought I would go into office on day one, and I haven't lost my idealism and I
Hmm.
haven't lost my conviction, but to really get to folks, I think it's doing mutual aid.
Mm. Interesting. Andrew, go.
Well, I don't, Justin, I don't think that's nihilistic at all, honestly. I wish more people would have that frame of mind,
Hmm.
because a lot of people in my position, being a part of the unhoused community, a lot of us don't trust politicians or authority figures who actually have the power to change things because
Hmm.
they can't relate to us on that personal level that someone could during a mutual aid campaign like what you're describing. So I agree with what you said. I don't agree about the nihilistic part. I think it is the right thing to do. But my thoughts on mutual aid, I think this was the question I was the most looking forward to in this whole thing. I spent a lot of time on this last night. So mutual aid is absolutely essential for the survival of any healthy society. As for the short-term effectiveness, mutual aid literally saves lives. I have a good friend whom I've known for many years who recently suffered a severe injury and was subsequently evicted from his living situation. Some of the symptoms of his injuries are occasional grand mal seizures and inability to regulate body temperature, so he couldn't safely drive. He was living out of his car in Texas, where right now the temperatures are still hitting triple digits during the day. And he was just not doing great. So along with the help of a few other people, I was able to take a Greyhound bus to where he was at, pick him up, and safely drive his car back to where we are now, where he'll be safe and he can continue healing from his injuries. Because he needed help on a mutual aid level, and I was in a position that I could physically go there and get him back to a safe place, and other people were in a position where they could help contribute the money for the bus ticket to get me there, and travel funds to get there and back. And that is the perfect example of mutual aid. Especially, it legitimately, I believe, saved his life, because it gets hot in Texas.
Right.
I also believe that the long-term effects of mutual aid would be a stronger, safer, and healthier community. Because I do very firmly believe that any community is only as strong as its most vulnerable members.
Wonderful thoughts. Highly appreciate that. So here's a question. Just how vulnerable is the average person from losing everything?
Very.
Extremely.
Well, yeah, well over half of all Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. So just one thing, I've said this before, I'll say it again. All of us in this room are closer to homelessness than we are to Elon Musk.
I know I am.
Right.
Yeah. And no matter how many social media companies he buys, he will never get down to our level.
Nope.
So yeah, this is really why I'm motivated here, because this is just something that affects us all. It affects those that we know and those that we love. And I actually just found out a tenant organizer that works with a partner organization of mine is now likely going to be homeless. So, I mean, this is somebody who's, quote unquote, professional in the, industry. Not that I believe in professionalism, but, it's impacting the people who I am rallying next to.
Right.
And it takes such a devastating toll on our community. I mean, but yeah, I'll pass off to the other panelists.
Right. I mean, Andrew, look what happened to you. I mean, you literally, it was just like, okay, this relationship ain't working. Gotta go. And
it just became a long road.
Yeah. And like it's like way simpler than, I mean, I remember hearing about a story about a person who had a similar situation. They were talking about it because I was hearing about it on the radio. And this person was like, well, what happened was I tried to start a business, and that business failed, and my wife got sick of me, and she kicked me out, and I was homeless. Done. Like that was it. It was like, it's so easy. It's so easy. Justin, you have any thoughts about it?
Did we lose Justin?
Oh, are you there, Justin? Uh-oh.
Sorry, I'll give you 1 second. My door's climbing up furniture from my living room.
Okay. Oh, okay.
You can show her if you want.
Yeah, it's like, yeah. If she, it's fine. We know what's up with the babies. You got any other thoughts, Andrew? While Justin's
Yeah. I
the
might
baby.
as well take the time so it doesn't sit around with dead airspace. The question was, how vulnerable is the average person from losing everything? And to that, I would say extremely vulnerable. Most people don't realize how vulnerable they are from being in exactly my position, but without a decade of experience to help them survive each day. A financial survey, I forget who did it. It was some financial magazine survey. In 2019, it was the intent was to encourage Americans to save more money. 59% of Americans, as of 2019, were currently at risk of becoming unhoused. Probably more than that now. One paycheck is all it would take for that 59%. One missed paycheck. That's it. Because they would not be able to get caught up on all of their expenses and bills if they missed a single paycheck. There's a smaller percentage that are 2 missed paychecks away, but that's still not much.
Nope. Wow. Great answer, Andrew. Anything, Justin? Are you still here? Are you okay? How's it going?
Yes. Sorry. Thank you for your thank you for your patience. I think we're all in a very vulnerable, closer to a vulnerable point in our lives, maybe more so than we think we are. I think there was some study that came out recently that 4 out of every 10 Americans couldn't afford a $400 emergency expense. And I think that's universally real for everyone right now. It just, on a personal level, I'm a renter. There's not a lot of renters in public office, and I gotta tell you, I feel like I'm one paycheck away from being homeless. I always fear that social workers don't get paid a whole lot, and I happen to be one of them, and but I'm obviously privileged to be in my position to have a roof over my head every day. But I fear the worst because I've when my lease is up, and I fear that my landlord is just there's going to be a gigantic jump in rent, and whether or not my wife and I will be able to afford that steep increase of rent always is worrisome to us, and it weighs on us. I just think, though, in general, everything is so expensive right now. And, it feels like a volcano. If it hasn't erupted, there are volcanoes at every street corner in this country just waiting to erupt. And we keep getting squeezed and squeezed and squeezed. And it's tough on every household in this country. And certainly, I certainly feel that in my city.
And of course, we haven't touched on this, but I mean, the whole minimum wage issue and how corruption affects that, we're just touching on these issues at this particular time, but I mean, there's so much else to say. But the last question that I have for y'all today, that Anita and I came up with, really was, what can the average person do to undo this mess? Any thoughts?
I'll let anybody else go first who wants to, because my answer is very firm and concise.
I don't know if Justin wants to go first, or
Yeah, I was just about to ask. Justin?
Yeah, I mean, I my earlier comment regarding one question was sort of, I had expressed losing hope in the political system. And so this is, my answer right now is somewhat a contradiction, but by no means did I want to discourage anyone for getting involved in changing our political system. But of course, the answer for me is to get money out of politics, reform our campaign finance system. Of course, I encourage everyone to, if you're passionate about any issue that helps folks, helps the average personnel get involved. But I'm just going to say this. I think often, however you identify on the political spectrum, I identify as a leftist. progressive, however you want to say it, campaign finance reform is sometimes not a sexy issue in this particular political space. In order, and we really need to take seriously campaign finance reform. I think in 2016, when we saw the rise of Senator Sanders, he spoke a lot about campaign finance reform, and it feels like we're losing some of that as part of the national conversation, and it feels to me, at least in where I live, it feels like that conversation is moving away from the local political scene. And we ought to bring that back. And I just hope that at the national level, it rises back to the top, the consciousness of everyone. But also, and I hope that trickles down back to where I live, because money in politics is the root of all evil, and it's at the center of every issue that we care about.
100%. Brandon?
My answer is organize. And this is really about, I mean, this is true for any issue, whether it is a lack of healthcare, lack of housing, or if it's money in politics. You cannot do anything alone. No elected official can do anything alone. No activist or anybody can do that alone. It's getting together with people in your community and advocating for change. Or, if I can be a little biased here, if you have a group like Rights and Democracy in your state, join a group like that for people who are actually fighting to get money out of politics. If that group doesn't exist, be that group. Get people together. Go out and knock doors, clipboard, collect lists, build movements, and help people out at the local level, which is why I'm really glad to see somebody like Justin here today. Because you know what? Yeah, the change, it's not going to come from the top. We're not going to solve this issue by electing a president or by, just electing one senator. It really is going to take a movement of people working together. And, one goal that I have is I want to make sure that my group, if we endorse somebody, that they're not taking money from the pharmaceutical industry, or that they're not going to be taking money from landlord and real estate interests. And that, us as an organization, I want to see work to get that corrupting influence out. In the short term, at least with the candidates that we support, we lift up candidates who listen to the people, and then we keep building, and then we win those reforms that we need.
100%. Andrew?
So what can the average person do to undo this mess? Well, individually, none of us really has any power or say, because we're not those rich politicians at the top of the food chain over here. We're individuals, so here's what the average person can do to start to undo the mess. Demand change, make your voice heard, participate in mutual aid as much as possible, read the fine print on proposed local legislations, because they like to try to sneak things in there a lot, and educate yourself about issues that affect the most vulnerable members of the community, which is, after all, the purpose of this entire segment of the conference, which is why I agreed to be here. And that's what I got.
Well, I have to say, wonderful work to each of you, to all of you. I'm very grateful that you were able to help educate us today. Because, this is an issue, like I said, I am really looking forward to the day when all these issues are solved, but this one, it really gets me. I hate this. I really don't. And so, if you're one of these people, I know, 59% of us are, according to 2019 study, 4 out of 10 of us can't even afford a $400 emergency. I think you can agree that you and your community deserve better than this. Okay, way better than this. And the reason you're not getting it is because we have corrupt politicians in this country who care way more about the donations that they get than your well-being and your health. I mean, like I said before, come stand beside me, come stand beside Anita, come stand beside Josh, come stand behind Justin, come stand behind all of us, and beside all of us, and because You can't take it anymore. We can't take it anymore. Let's go fight this issue. Let's go win. As long as we organize and we stand together, we can do this, and we will do this as long as we don't give up. And from what I've seen, being in Wolfpack specifically, we ain't giving up. So let's go do it together. Anita, you got any questions? That I know you've been looking out for them, so I'll let you handle the question part because that's harder for me to do. But I did want to
No
just say how much
worries.
I appreciate all of you, Justin, Brandon, and Andrew. I'm very grateful to have you here today.
Yeah, it's
So
been.
grateful to be here.
I was excited about this opportunity after the initial nervousness went away.
Mhm.
And Anita could tell you it took me a couple days to get back to her.
We had some conversations, yes.
And of course, I'm
Um,
extremely grateful for you too, Anita, because you're awesome as hell. So
Yeah, Andrew, really
You
glad to
all
get
are
time with you.
awesome.
go
I
ahead.
appreciate the education that you all have provided for us today. Thank you very much. Your perspectives are very valuable. Andrew, thank you for joining us. We do have some, looks like we've got 5 audience questions.
All
One
right.
from Aaron wants to know how much of the cost of houselessness is offloaded onto philanthropists, and is this even a good thing?
Now, I don't know any exact figures for that one, but I would say probably at least more than 50% if I had to make a guess, because the programs that are actually in place are just so sparse and insufficient, and they're difficult to qualify for. Whereas with philanthropists, since they're private individuals, they can basically just use their money and create their own program and be more efficient, honestly, than having to jump through all the hoops to get public assistance.
Mhm. I thought I heard someone say they had an answer. Was that Justin?
Oh, I had an answer.
Oh, Brandon. Okay, sorry.
So I alluded to this earlier on this panel that the for a while the biggest homelessness shelter in New Hampshire was a privately run organization, which the board consisted of all the major developers, realtors, and basically anybody like the who's who of the Manchester business community sits on these boards of these nonprofits. So yeah, like I would say that there are philanderers out there who are or philanthropists out there who do give their own personal money to these causes. But I want to say that actually a lot of these folks create nonprofits and then get government grants. So a lot of times they're not even directly giving their money to these causes. They're taking our money. So keep this in mind. They charge us rents, they pay us less than the value that we create at their businesses, and then they use our tax dollars to then run services that our government is just not wanting to provide. And I think especially if you've seen since the 1980s and through the 1990s, we've gone through this neoliberal philosophy of privatizing these services. So essentially, these business owners, these elites are taking our money and then whitewashing their own reputations with our tax dollars. And they get to look like these great people when they are causing the problems and getting credit for solving the problems that they've created at the same time. So I would say that this is not a good thing at all. And I just want to say this private shelter is not subject to Freedom of Information Act requests. They are not subject to basic accommodations for those with disabilities. These private organizations are not accountable like government agencies would be. So I would say that this is an incredibly bad thing, the amount that we rely on the private sector to solve issues that should be just addressed in the public sector, which again, we're taking tax dollars and giving it to these private organizations anyway. I'll get off my soapbox here.
Wonderful. I appreciate you. at Brandon Dewsley. What else you got, Anita, for questions?
Let's see. Chris would like to know. Oh, wait, no, there's a. Does your state have a limit or cap on how much your landlords can raise your rent? I don't remember who asked that question, but is that the case? Is there rent control where you all are?
I'll speak. In New Hampshire, absolutely no rent control. We have actually, so another thing too is I advocate a lot on homelessness, but my main job is actually being a tenant organizer.
Mhm.
And so we've actually experienced tenants who have had their rents doubled with only 30 days notice, which is completely illegal here. Yeah. Other states have
That's
more
insane.
protection. Oh, it is insane. But also keep in mind, our state legislature consists of 400 people, and they're virtually unpaid. So think about who has the ability to drive to the state capitol 3+ days a week for zero money. Landlords. So out of those 400 people, I don't have an official count, but we have more landlords in our state body than we do have tenants. So there's also kind of that self-interested, corrupting influence there. Where I believe if you're a landlord and a piece of tenant legislation comes up, I think that you should be forced to abstain from that vote. We don't have such provisions. So, our motto here is live free or die. And that's true if you have money. You can live free if you have money, and you can oppress people with less money than you here.
So I just looked it up, and the state that I'm in right now has no rent control policies whatsoever.
I could answer that question from I live in the state of Rhode Island, so I can answer that question. I think so. There is no state mandated rent control law. In fact, and although I would like one in the next legislative session, I'm actually more concerned about a preemption law that would get passed that would ban rent control, such as I think in California there's the Costa Hawkins law, something along those lines, where they've banned rent control in terms of allowing individual cities and towns to pass their own rental caps to protect their renters. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm still wrestling with my daughter here. She's like, but
all right, she's a valuable participant.
Right. For sure.
In the city of Providence, we're moving towards a few things. The first thing is we're really behind other cities. I'm really excited that this is actually. I'm sharing an exclusive here with everyone. I don't think anyone from my state is watching this, but if you are, you're getting an exclusive too. But we're putting a rental public. I'm sorry, I can't even talk right now. One second. A public rental registry is on the docket that we're going to pass through city ordinance, and we are well behind other cities. So basically, we don't have a way. If we're truly living in a housing crisis, we don't have a way to get metrics to inform how we tackle this crisis. And so what do I mean by that? In the city of Providence, we do not know anything about our housing inventory. We don't know which units are vacant. We don't know we don't know how many bedrooms per unit. We don't know which landlords are violating are making code violations. And you can hear my door in the background. Oh my goodness. So I'll be quick because I have to. But we don't know a whole lot about our housing. And so the first step is to get this registry passed to mandate that landlords annually give us report info about their units, and even reporting out how much they charge their tenants each month, so that way we could get a clearer understanding of how much rent is across the city. Besides having to rely on Zillow. So that's
Mhm.
step one. Step two is rent stabilization. We're looking closely at that. To me,
Mhm.
that's a compromise. That's not necessarily rent control, but it's a
Mhm.
compromise. But it's a compromise I'm willing to push for besides nothing. And so we're going to move towards rent stabilization, which is essentially not dictating how much a landlord could charge, but ultimately putting a cap. And I think I'm looking at 3 to 5% as well.
Right.
In some there was a state, I think it was, I forget what state, but there was a rent control law, but it was so. The other thing that viewers might want to consider is, even if you have a rent control law in your state, it's probably so diluted that probably not doing a whole lot. And so I would encourage viewers watching this to look into if a rent control law is on the books, and to strengthen it as well.
Mhm.
Could I just suggest
I
something to
wonder.
Justin?
Mhm.
So Justin, I just want to say, yes, on rental registry, I think it's really good. Oftentimes the tenants that I organize with don't know who their landlord actually is. They know who the property manager is, but they're not the owners. Kansas City actually passed a rental registry. They have a great group called Kansas City Tenants. I highly recommend reaching out to them, kctenants.org. And I just have to recommend you need a penalty for not complying with the rental registry,
Yep.
because they got it passed, but the landlords don't participate in it. And
Yeah,
there's no consequence. So just
yeah,
keep it
that's
in
a
mind.
solid point. We do have baked into this ordinance a significant penalty if you do not report, if you do not take uh, oh my goodness, sorry, if you do not take if sorry y'all, if you don't participate in the registry at a yearly basis, you will essentially be fined. Give me 1 second, y'all.
You don't have to apologize. All right. And
Yeah,
also
please.
glad to hear there's that provision.
All right, me too. All right. Well, it looks like it's like 4:24. I don't want to eat into the time, of course, of the next panelist. But once again, I just want to express my gratitude to each of you for coming on today, um, and Anita for being such an awesome partner in this panel. Um, Grateful to see you all. And like I said before, you know, from what we know, this could happen to you too. You know I don't know my landlord either, and I know I'm not all that rich either. So like it's it's real, y'all. It's real out here, and the only way to fix it is to get up, stand up, and try to get this constitutional amendment, push for it, so we can actually get something done. So you and your community can actually be secure, and if not you now, definitely our future, aka Justin's daughter there. So, and Sam's daughters and everyone else that has kids, and my nephews, and like everybody. We need to fight for, like, you and your community have to fight for yourselves and your future. And so I look forward to doing that with y'all. Let's go get them. Um, any last thoughts from anyone, Anita, especially because I know you've been pretty silent, but we got like 5 minutes, so
Just,
um,
I've got a couple of plugs to do. I do want to thank our panelists for being here talking. Um, if you want to learn how to get out and have these conversations, we are doing the organizing conversation training next month. I know that that's been plugged uh, at least once in to the talks here, but I do want to bring that up. We did talk about getting out into the community, organizing, talking to people, and just a reminder, when dealing with people who are unhoused, unsheltered, or for whatever reason, people walking around, maybe we're not necessarily all there. Maybe we're talking to ourselves. maybe we're seeing things that you don't. And it's scary for us. We're very vulnerable in those states, and we just need some compassion. So whenever you are out and about and you see somebody down on their luck, going through a hard time, compassion, talking to them like they're a human being goes a long way.
100%. Appreciate you all. Appreciate you, Anita. Appreciate you, Brandon, Justin, Andrew. Keep fighting the good fight, y'all. We're standing beside you, and we're gonna keep fighting this until we win.
Appreciate you.
Yep. Please take care, everybody.
For having me.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you for the questions, audience people.
Yes.
You're awesome.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
You
Brandon,
sure are.
Andrew, great to meet you guys virtually. Hopefully we can do this again, but next year in person.